of thinking would not respect this, right? I mean, if you're going to be good at it, you got to price shop, right, Jeremy? You got to fantasy or betting or whatever it is. You can't just sort of stop short.
Of course, I'm a degenerate, so you're going to shop for the best numbers. You're going to do everything you can to try to get an edge, right? So, I've got no problem doing that. It might take a little extra effort, but I think in the end it pays off.
Yeah, that's the problem. See, that's the effort thing is what's in my way. I want to just say up front,
I could do so many great things if I only could try.
If maybe I should just touch some grass instead. Anyway, I sort of try to convince myself of that. I always enjoy when you're on with us, Jeremy. Though I was thinking today, we've kind of had the same conversation a lot.
Aren't the Bills and Ravens kind of the same?
We've kind of had the same. Allen and Jackson, whose debuts came in the same game in Baltimore, a Ravens blowout, and they both were backups and got in. That's 8 years ago now, 8 seasons, and so they're both probably about halfway through their careers, and they and we together are always asking the same questions, like how will this year be different? So in terms of the Ravens, how will this year be different?
Oh, man. Obviously standing on different sides of the track than you guys, but seeing basically the same outcomes over and over again is kind of frustrating. We're waiting for them to get over the hump. I mean, 2 years ago, I felt like it was a no-brainer that they had the best team in football, and they were ranked in the top 10 offensively and defensively at that point. Last year, I thought they had the best group of guys possible, and then you add Derrick Henry into that mix, and it's like, oh, this is going to be fantastic, and you guys were a part of how that ended. So I think fans still hope they're going to get to the promised land because it's really become a Super Bowl or bust thing because nothing else is going to satisfy this fan base unless they finally get it done.
How do you feel about Super Bowl or bust? Hosting a show with a fan base that has that mentality, because here's these mirror images here. It's the Spider-Man meme. That's kind of where we've been for a couple of years now, and I think you got to be careful to not skip the regular season because a lot of stuff that's pretty cool can happen.
Yeah, no, there's no question about it. I mean, our fan base is just like any other. They're so fickle when it comes to certain things. I've actually thought that some of the football fans have now bled into baseball, and it drives me insane because they're looking at it in a small view instead of looking at the big picture over 162 games of how things have to go. But, look, the fan base has visions of grandeur, and it's interesting since the team's been here in Baltimore. They've won 2 championships, and both of the years were really strange. There's no way they were the best team in football in 2012. When they made that magical run with Flacco and the Mile High Miracle. And when you go back to 2000, they went 5 weeks without scoring a touchdown. So they just had the greatest defense of all time. And, I mean, it's the things we talk about. But, now you finally have this quarterback that you really want to watch play, and he's one of the most exciting guys in the league. And he's done everything else. It's just, okay, the pinnacle, and go win it.
And there's also, go make it first for both of these teams at least. And, we had a couple of good conversations in here, Jeremy, where I think we sometimes use make the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl interchangeably, but they're obviously not the same thing. But the Bills and the Ravens both, unlike the Bengals, who did get through the one time, have the Kansas City problem. And so, I don't know, there's not much of a point here, I guess. It's just, wow, one of these teams could make it, and we'd all feel like, maybe not on the inside, but out here we'd feel like that's culmination. They did it. And then they walk and see Philadelphia on the other side, and good luck.
Yeah, well, I feel like, too, our fan bases end up battling with each other, and each one wants to be the one that gets over the hump with Patrick Mahomes and finally knocking off the Chiefs and doing that. And as you said, it was strange watching Burrow do it the one season, and everybody was so excited about it, but Cincinnati, I don't even know if they're going to have 11 guys on defense this year. I mean, that's going to be one of the worst defenses in football. So, it is kind of, as you said, mirror imaging when you look at the two cities and how things go. But I don't like the idea of Super Bowl or bust, but it's like, what else can you do?
Right.
What else can you show the fan base? I mean, you just had a quarterback that had 41 touchdowns and 4 picks, and it's one of the best seasons we've seen in a long time. And, you ended up on the short end of the stick in a game where neither team punted. I still can't figure out how that happened.
While rushing for 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
The way.
Hey, man. Yeah.
Yeah, how did that? I mean, speaking of mirror images, Bills-Ravens and then Bills-Chiefs the following week were very similar in how the team that lost for one way to look at it, is they lost because they couldn't convert on a 2-point play. Like Baltimore 0 for 2 in their game, I think, and the Bills might have been 0 for 2 in theirs, and also lost by, in their case, it was 3. So very close.
How do you feel about that? I mean, because I don't have a problem. Here in Baltimore, people talk about the team being so analytical, and I think there is a such thing as being too analytical. But analytics aren't stupid; they help you on defense, offense, everywhere. And it's just information, and you decide how you want to use it. But this is a team that's been ultra aggressive on 4th down and 2-point conversions. Sometimes where you're like, I think it'd be a good idea to go up 2 scores here. I don't know if it has to be, 14 points, but whatever. That's sometimes what this aggressive team does, and I don't mind it. But there are situations where you're going, it's time to lay it up there, Cup.
Yeah. In the Ravens case, the first they were 0 for 2 on the 2-point plays in the playoffs in the game in Buffalo, and the first one was late third. They were down by 2. So that would have been weird, I think, if they don't. But there could have been a debate there. And the other one is, game's on the line. You have no choice the second time. But, yeah, I can remember the game.
Other one's one of the worst plays in Baltimore history now, I think, watching him drop maybe the easiest reception of his life.
Andrews. I can remember the game in Pittsburgh. There might have been more than one where they went for 2. It was Sammy Watkins might have caught the touchdown, and they went for 2 and lost.
Oh, yeah, and that's when they went to T.J. Watt's side, and Mark Andrews, again, was wide open, but they tried to lob the ball over Watt, and Watt got a piece of it.
Okay. Yep. Jeremy Conn with us here on the Wester Hotline.
You mentioned the fan base is kind of getting after one another, and we certainly have seen that. And we've seen positive too, like donations to Andrew's charity of choice and stuff like that after last year. But the fan bases are at each other, and I think I'm curious for your take on this, Jeremy. Like for me, I think a lot of Bills fans do feel this way. Like you don't want. Obviously, we're sick of Mahomes winning, and we're ready to see somebody else do it. But, for me, I don't want to see Lamar Jackson. I didn't want to see Joe Burrow get a Super Bowl trophy before our guy, before Josh Allen. And Lamar is definitely in that. Is your experience that the fans are sort of using each other against one another, if you know what I mean? Like we're judging the franchises and the quarterbacks on trophies, and we don't want someone to get out ahead of our guy.
Yeah, I think we start these big uproar over nothing. I mean, there are some times where the fans are pushing back, and it's a small minority of the fan base that starts posting videos and this. And, everybody has an opinion, and they got to let you know on social media now. And I think things take off way faster than they ever did, when I first got into radio here. But it is kind of strange to see the mudslinging going on, but maybe there is some of that competitive nature of wanting to be the team that actually does it, that goes in, knocks off Pat Mahomes, and as you pointed out, not only gets to the Super Bowl, but wins it.
With Jeremy Conn, our guest from 105.7, The Fan in Baltimore, Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here. So more granularly, what is going to be different about the Ravens this year? I mean, there's always changes to the roster. Both the Bills and the Ravens are always drafting late, so assuming starters from the draft isn't always safe. What do you think might look different about Baltimore?
I mean, the Ravens are bringing back a lot of the same pieces, and I think they've added as well. If you were going to talk about weaknesses on their team, you might look at the interior spot at left guard and figuring out who's going to win that job. I don't know that it actually means they're going to be weak. They just don't know which guy they're going to go with, but that's what you have. They did lose some guys on the end of, if you're looking at some of the interior linemen on the defensive side, as Michael Pierce hung them up, and that was a big body. That's one of those guys you just call a plug, and you guys have had a couple of them up in Buffalo. So they replace him, and then you're trying to work in some of these new guys, because the Ravens have done a great job of drafting and having guys ready when guys leave, and I think you're going to see some new names sliding in there, and Travis Jones might become a household name on the defensive side. And they just added. I mean, if Jair Alexander stays healthy, this defense potentially, it could be the best secondary in football, because you're not only adding that, you get to use Kyle Hamilton how you want, and you just drafted Malachi Starks, who some thought was the best safety in the draft. So, there's high hopes here, but you got to stay healthy, and we've seen that bug by both of our teams over the years.
Yeah, that secondary seems really impressive here, led by Kyle Hamilton. You mentioned Starks getting added in there, Alexander, a late signing. You've got one of the best nickelbacks in Humphrey. Things look and I'm not even mentioning Nate Wiggins either. Pretty well set up there.
Yeah, everybody in the secondary is a first-round pick. It's insane to think that you have that type of luxury, but every one of them. And, the fact that you get Jair Alexander really on the cheap, and it's kind of one of those years where it's like he's got to prove it. If he proves it, maybe you want to pay him and you want to let somebody else walk. And he and Lamar were teammates. If you remember, while he was doing a draft interview, Lamar got drafted and he was losing his mind. So we thought there might be a pretty good chance that he was going to come here. And, I mean, he looks ready to go. He's just got to stay healthy. I still think he's got that, top-notch ability to be like a number one and locking down. And you're going to need it in this division, for crying out loud.
I don't remember that. So Alexander, did he go like early second or something that year?
No, he was drafted earlier, and while he was being interviewed on like NFL Network, they were announcing Lamar being drafted, and he jumped up and he started cheering, and they stopped the interview for a second because he was so excited to watch the quarterback get drafted.
Okay. Yep. I remember a lot of things about that night, but not that.
You guys, yeah.
Let's talk about that for a minute more. I'd be interested in knowing like how you remember that. One thing I remember is that morning. It wasn't until like the morning of that draft, 2018, that Mayfield became like he's going to be 101. It was like the day before. It could have been Darnold. It could have been Allen even. And so there was just a lot of drama that year. And here we are again, like similar kind of existences.
I would have been like an idiot I'll tell you the story because I didn't want him to draft Lamar Jackson. I remember who my favorite player was in that draft. And as we were looking at it, the Ravens had an early pick in the mid-rounds because they kind of had one of those 500 seasons beforehand or just below it. And they ended up trading back, accumulating a pick, drafting Hayden Hurst, the tight end who's no longer here, and then trading back into the first and taking Lamar Jackson. I was losing my mind because Derwin James was on the board when the Ravens were picking, so I didn't want to hear anything about a Lamar Jackson. And then watching him the first year, I'm going, this dog don't hunt, man. We can't run the option, for crying out loud. We're not going to do this, are we? And this is the one thing I've never been happier in saying I was wrong on, that Lamar turned out to be a pretty special player. So, and we go back to the draft night because he always said, as Baltimore fans say, I'm going to get you a Super Bowl, believe that. So they're still waiting for it.
They are. That's true. Here was interesting too. I mean, there was Josh Allen and there was Josh Rosen. And what Bulldog? Like they had a party at the field house at the stadium.
There was booing when the pick was made.
Yeah.
Does that mean they're going to be a good pick when the fans start booing?
I guess so.
Maybe. Well, listen, from that year, maybe this is you and we both will know at least to say this time. You never know, right? It's like whatever pick we don't like that gets made. Hey. Josh Allen, I mean, you never know. So that was quite a year.
How much, if at all, Jeremy, do you guys spend pondering just how much longer you got? Mike mentioned it. Like they're both maybe about halfway through here, right? 8 years in. And you've got guys who are, like, their youth is very pertinent in how they play, right? I mean, I just find it hard to imagine the back halves of these careers, or maybe the back quarter of both of these guys' careers, are going to look that similar from a rushing standpoint as, say, the first quarter of their careers did. Just age comes for everyone eventually. And it is kind of stark when you think about, we're halfway there, just about.
Yeah, and I think, too, like looking at these guys, both of these guys will be able to make that transition. And maybe there was more questions about Lamar early on, and I know people questioned Josh before Diggs showed up, and then he showed everybody he didn't need any of that he's fine without. But when you look at both quarterbacks, I feel like there is something to the extension of their careers and how much they stop running because, when you get into the postseason, I think all bets are off, but they will start to dial it back. The one thing I'll say about Lamar, though, for a guy that runs as much as he does, he does not really take a lot of hits. The worst hits he takes are in the pocket. And, I worry a little bit about Josh because he's so big and strong. I just remember Cam starting to slow down and some of those injuries starting to add up. But, when you look at both of them, anything could go wrong when they're taking off with the football. Maybe they do cut it back at the end of their career.
It's interesting how Lamar Jackson really doesn't run for touchdowns. It's very. It seems like it would be, by the numbers at least, I would want to say a pretty small portion of what they do in the red zone. Maybe would be Jackson, or just in emergency situations.
That beast back there, number 22. Like I don't know what he's doing. He's just going to keep feeding him. But
last year anyway.
Last year was kind of that way. And And the Ravens have always, look, this is a team that's always had a good run game. People have thought about Baltimore. It's been running and defense for all those years, and then the league opens up the offense, and it's like, why are we sitting back in caveman era when we finally got fire? Let's go see what's happening with this forward pass thing. But they've always had good run games, and then you add in Lamar, and I'm sure you guys feel that same way in Buffalo, because for a while there, he was your running back when you guys were going 4 wide in the playoffs. So, Lamar's one of those guys that just adds being out there because of the threat of him running. So it keeps guys on their heels. Sometimes you got to have a spy. And so I do think there's still a benefit of having that guy back there, even in the red zone, if he's not going to be the guy that ends up taking it to the house.
Bills and Ravens week 1, Sunday night in Orchard Park. Jeremy, quickly before you go, what are your expectations for DeAndre Hopkins there?
I kind of feel like it's going to be a perfect fit, because the one thing I've loved about his entire career, he's always played with running quarterbacks, and he's always worked back to the ball. And I feel like a guy like Lamar always creates time. He's not going to be asked to do a lot. He's really filling in the Nelson Aguilar role. So he'll be out there in 3 wides, maybe in some substitution packages as well. And I think you're going to see him play out in the red zone, because he still has a high catch radius. And, that whole career, he doesn't drop passes. So I think he's going to fit in well here. It's kind of interesting to have him on the offensive side and add in Jair Alexander on the defensive side. It's like, who's giving out all these players now?
Yeah, right. And Andrews will still be there. There's been varying degrees of trade speculation on him, but are we past that?
Yeah, so everybody thought that was going to happen, that they needed to clear some money up. And obviously when you looked at it, all of their tight ends were coming up at the same time. And Isaiah Likely is, the kid's kind of a freak of nature, and he's going to be a name that if you don't know it yet, the rest of the league's going to start to know it. Because I think they're going to pay him and eventually let Andrews walk, unless he wants to stay here on a team-friendly deal. So, but yeah, we thought he might get traded. There was talk about the Chargers and some other teams, but ultimately he stayed at home, and they're going to try to make a run with him.